well, number one, it got 1,000 times worse because I had never stopped before. I never really had to deal with anything. I never had to deal with my limitations. I never had to. It was almost like, I mean, I was burning myself out. I was burning myself into the ground, and I didn't really realize I was doing that until...
Welcome to another wonderful day with a wonderful podcast with another beautiful lady. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce her surname. I know she told me, and I that's what my mouth did when I tried to pronounce it. So her name is Anna
Priz.
It's not Priz.
Przybylski.
If it was Priz, wouldn't you think I would say Priz? What is your name?
My name is Anna Przybylski.
Przybylski.
Yeah.
I apologize, Anna.
You are fine. It's not my name, so it's all good.
All right. Okay. Well, at least she's gonna forgive me. So it should be a good podcast. So we shall see. So we have Anna with us today. As always, I do not have a clue what she does, what's her backstory, or anything like that, because I'm just lazy like that, and I just like to have a natural conversation to find out what they do. So Anna, I'm going to be the typical same old what everyone hears. What do you do to help people within your business and to make them successful? And then we'll go with the flow.
Okay, well, number one, laziness doesn't exist. You just prioritize rest and
That's good.
Yeah, just so you know.
I like her already. I like her. You can stay.
Yeah, so basically my whole my purpose I've chosen in this world is to encourage everybody to slow down. So I'm actually a huge fan of people who choose efficiency and rest and over productivity and burning yourself out. So I forgot the question already, but I'm a digital content creator. As of 2 months ago, I'm a full-time digital content creator, and my job now is me. Okay. So I bet on myself. I walked away from a 13-year career in event planning and decided that I was worth creating my own job over. And so now my job is every day I find ways to make money. But I have so an interesting choice, but I have 1.4 million followers on TikTok and Instagram. And so when the pandemic hit, I'm a recovering workaholic, okay? And so I had been at this company for most of my adult life. I started a buyout to own the event planning company that I worked for in 2018. And so when the pandemic hit, and obviously we couldn't have events, I lost my job and my identity and my money and everything I'd ever known. And all that I realized was that I had no idea who I was, and that I had just been living in the path that my parents and society and teachers and the world had laid out for me, and that I didn't like it. And so I always say it felt like I was in this glass box and it shattered and I couldn't put the pieces back together. And from that moment forward, my whole life's purpose became figuring out who I was and what I wanted out of my life. And day by day and minute by minute, in front of the world online. Of course, it didn't start out in front of the world. It was, a couple hundred people here and there. I unlearned everything I ever thought I knew to be true, right? All of the things I thought, like that my productivity was my value, or that, that I was lazy and not just burnt the fuck out, and all of these things. And somehow I created an entirely new life for myself and decided that I could actually do anything I wanted to do, which was both terrifying and also meant I actually had the entire world at my fingertips and I could pluck out of the sky what I wanted to do because I had nothing to lose. And so I walked away from a stable career and all of that, and I decided to start a daily morning show. So I have a daily morning show behind a paywall. I create content every day, and I have a merch business, and I tour with a one-woman live comedy show, and I've been doing this all for 2 years. And I wrote a book, and I wrote a book and published a book, and so this has just kind of been my thing. But like when you talk about, you know, my career, I just decided I could make it up as I went along. And my job, my purpose, I say yes when people ask me if I want to try new things, and I put myself out there.
Oh, that was really scary. I mean, for you to, I mean, the pandemic was scary for most people, to be honest, and that was a very, very difficult time, regardless whether you had your job or not. It was a big problem, but considering that you had lost your job and it was something you had done for so long, it's like, what do I do now? And I totally get that. And the fear in you, it must have been shocking, because it was fearful enough time with a job waiting for you, but not to have one, especially when you've been in that for 13 years. That's all you knew. I take it that's the only job you pretty much did.
Yeah, I went straight into that job after I graduated, and that is what I had been doing. And not only that, but it was my whole life. Like, those were my friends. Those was my social life. All I did was work 7 days a week, and then I had none of that.
So you lost not just your job, but you lost your friends effectively. And I'm sure you kept in touch with all of them, but that was all part and parcel. And you lost your identity big time, because everything was all in one pot, right? It was all in one place. And then on top of that, you had to deal with the isolation to do with lockdown, and especially when you was a party girl, and then you had to be the opposite.
Yeah.
You had to have the isolation, you know, so you really had the double, triple whammy at the same time. And how chaotic was it? I know you tried to describe it very quickly, but when everything happened at that point in time, what was it really like for you? How did you, what was the realization at the time, and how did you cope at that particular point in time? That week, that really bad week.
My gosh. Yeah. So first there's the like, maybe nothing will happen. That was like the first day of that week, was like, it's going to be okay. And then of course the week goes on and you're like, oh no, oh God. And so then, it's reinventing the wheel. And not just once, you know, the first week is reinventing the wheel once. We've never canceled an event before, right? I've got 1,500 people coming on Sunday. And there's no protocol. You're making it up as you go along. And it's just this like, oh, we're not going to be okay. Like, that was the first major thing, was we're not going to be okay. You know, we don't have a plan. We don't have a safety plan. We don't have a backup plan. We don't have a source of income if this goes on for longer than, you know, the 2 weeks they said it was going to be. And it was both things though. It was kind of like the worst thing that had ever happened, but I was also like, oh my God, I can't wait to sit down. Because I've also never stopped before. I've been going and going and going and going. And so it was this like, I got a day off. I was also just so catatonically, like, I couldn't actually fathom what was happening. Because how can you? My biggest fear my entire life had been my life falling apart. Like, I have spent my whole life trying not to let anybody see me sweat or walk that line of perfection, like, to where you're not annoying, but you're still very successful. And I think it was mostly just shock. Like, what do we do? And then making up a plan for one was like, okay, we got this. We got this. We'll be back in a month, and it's one event. Like, we'll be fine. And then, and then that obviously didn't happen. And then it was like, oh my God.
What a terrible time. Now, you have ADHD, is that not correct?
I sure do.
Right, okay, so let's discuss that. Now, the reason why I didn't say anything earlier on is because I wanted people to understand how bad it was in the first place, before anything else.
Right.
Well, when you got ADHD, how did that affect your ADHD?
Well, number one, it got 1,000 times worse. Because I had never stopped before. I never really had to deal with anything. I never had to deal with my limitations. I never had to. It was almost like, I mean, I was burning myself out. I was burning myself into the ground, and I didn't really realize I was doing that until, like I said, like, when I say that box shattered and you couldn't put me back in it.
That's right.
The ADHD was, for the first time ever, truly debilitating. Like, even trying to go back to work or whatever, or like I said, trying to reinvent the wheel. Like, it was as if I had put my brain in a track that it could succeed on. And then the second that things changed, I couldn't put anything back together. It was like, why can't you do this? It's just, I couldn't. And why can't you, keep track of any of this? I don't know. And because I didn't get diagnosed until then, it's really what happened. And then they ask you about your childhood, and you say, oh yeah, I've always been this way, but I found a way to make it work because nobody was advocating for me, and I wasn't advocating for me. So I just thought that's the way that it was, and that was the way that it had to be. But once I lost my track, it was like, forget it. That brain was gone. It was
I get you.
On the moon.
Well, let's just try to take this situation away. Let's go back with some hindsight.
Yeah.
Let's see what that ADHD looks like without all that chaos at the time. So now you've got a bit of hindsight. Obviously, you didn't know that ADHD was there when you was much younger. So, but you've got the hindsight now. You understand what the ADHD really looked like, the symptoms, etc. Go back as far as you can and just let us know how your ADHD materialized.
I mean, when I think about my entire life, and I think about how frustrating I was to my parents, always. Like, why can't you do it? And I didn't know. Like, why can't you just pick that up? Or like, why can't you do this homework? Or why can't you get this project done? And, I didn't obviously understand, executive dysfunction or that my brain worked on a different reward system than it, so I couldn't explain myself either. It was just like, mostly I just felt terrible all the time, right? I just felt like, I don't know why I'm like this, and I don't know. So you try to mask it, and you come up with your own exhausting ways to get through life and get through school and get through all of it. But it is that same, like, I wake up 3 minutes before I have to be somewhere, and I don't know why I do that. And I can't do my homework until 5 minutes before it's due, and I don't know why I do that. Would I like to do it sooner? Yes, but I can't. Would I like to be able to work at a normal pace, right? That, like, would I like to take the week that I have to do a project? Yes, but I can't. I just have to do it in the last minute. And trying to explain that to an adult who's just like, I'm trying to teach you how to succeed and you just aren't learning it. And you're like, no, I hear you. I totally hear you. But this is the way that I for some reason have to do it. And it's hard to look back and be like, how much frustration and how much stress, I spent, and my parents spent, instead of maybe realizing I needed a different track, a different way to live my life.
Yeah,
and
cool.
it tracks so much now that I created my own life that works for me.
Let's just delve in, just to find out exactly what your usual day was like as a child. So I understand you was asked for certain things to happen and you did things at the last moment. You didn't listen about certain things. But how frustrating was it for you being isolated? I suppose you felt isolated because people are telling you to do A, B, and C. You're unable to do that. And then you're quite confused. So what was that isolation like? What would a typical day of isolation look like, and how did you feel and think and etc.?
What worked in my favor was that I had to become so fiercely independent because I had to do things my own way, even if nobody wanted me to be living my life that way, right? At some point they just accepted it. Like when I was a teenager, they're like, I don't know, that's just Anna. But it is so isolating. That's when people say, like, what happened when you got diagnosed, and you say, not really anything, except for that it made everything make a lot more sense. And it took a lot of blame off my shoulders, because the amount of pressure I put on myself my entire life, because I couldn't do it the way they wanted to do it, I just made sure that the way I was doing it ended up perfect. And you think about how exhausting that is for a 10-year-old. And on top of that, obviously, I stuck out at school. I had one teacher, at least, who recognized that she was like, something, she's so smart and she gets it all done, but like, you should have her, like, maybe switch her schools or something, because this traditional way of education isn't working for her. And, but I didn't want to be isolated in that way either. I didn't want to be singled out and like sent away. So, but I did end up going to an alternative learning program school.
Okay.
Where I really did thrive.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, the problem was it was for 3 years. And then you go back to regular school. And then you're even worse off, because now you finally got to go to and it was kind of like an independent learning, where you did it on your own.
Yes.
Here's when
see.
It's due, and that worked so well for me.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't work under a traditional timeline. It worked much better when they said, here's what you need to learn, and here's when you need to learn it by. Like, go crazy. But then that they only have that for years 4 and 5, and then they send you right back into school with everybody else, and then you're even more messed up. One, because you didn't make friends for the last 2 years, and now you're going to a new school again. So it's a lot to think about, and people will say it's a superpower, and you're like, yeah, a debilitating one, in that society wants us to exist in a certain way, and I physically couldn't do it. When you think about feeling so left out of the world.
So I get it. You went to this school that was very supportive, which was massive for you. So you were able to thrive and focus. But unfortunately, you didn't have the friendships that you needed, which I can see made things, as you said, far more difficult, because when you went back to mainstream, not only did you not have the support you had before, but now you had unlearned the skills to deal with the average child or peers or whatever the case may be. So it was actually worse than before. So yeah, you had beautiful 2 years, but then it was more taxing when you came back into mainstream. So when that had happened, how did you cope? You was put down, someone's picked you up, put you down, and you thought, whoa. Then what happened? How did you cope to go forward? Because again, if you've already been independent when you was much younger, because you had to be, because nobody understood you and you was isolated, you had to go back to being Anna, the independent person again. So how did that work out? How did you deal with that situation?
Being funny.
Okay.
Literally, that's what I took for the rest of my life, was like, if I'm not going to fit in correctly, so I'm going to have to be the comedic relief in every room I'm in. And that's the way that I interacted with the world for the next 10 years, literally. And I mean, school-wise, the problem wasn't necessarily that I didn't do well. I did great. But I was bored out of my mind, and I wasn't really learning anything. I was memorizing things and then doing well and then forgetting it all. Like, none of it set me up well. And I get that there's not, I don't know what the answer is, but it didn't set me up to feel great as an adult, for sure.
I get that, because it's a situation that you didn't learn it out of instinct, and you was able to take that information away so you can apply it to the rest of your life. It's as if a third party, somebody else done the work, and you had the certificate, right?
Yep.
And it's like, now when you come to put that in play, be that with in front of other people you're trying to interact one-to-one with or go into business with, it's like, I'm an imposter, which you're not, but that's what it felt like.
Are you
couldn't
sure?
apply it. Because you couldn't apply it, right? It was difficult for you to apply. Is that how you felt?
I felt like everything has been so difficult, except for, I really liked what you just said, actually, about, like, I didn't learn any of it. Like, it all just sort of, I held the information for a second, threw it back, and then threw it away.
That's right. You got a twin sister you didn't tell us about. That's what happened.
Yeah, 100%. But no, it's true. When you talk about being an imposter, I've never felt like I belonged in the spaces I've been in. Not as a professional, nothing. It didn't matter how good I was at my job. It didn't matter. I never felt like I was doing it right, or I was the right person for the job. Yeah.
Well, you obviously were, because again, it was coping mechanisms that you had to build up, and you had to learn, you had to navigate through, all the issues that you had. Okay, you couldn't remember A, B, and C, but you had to make it work, right? You wanted to do the job, you had to make it work, and that's what made you resilient. Yes, you had the certificates, but you know what? I can't quite remember this, but you found a way, because you had to do it all your life.
Yeah, I haven't even really thought about that, but yes.
Yeah, because
your whole life you're just making it work, but it never is quite what you I don't know. It's never quite right.
Yeah.
It's like covering the hole in the puzzle with a piece of tape.
Yeah.
And saying it's whole.
Yeah, so I know what you're saying. So as you got older, so you've left, you got the qualifications, you've met your partner. How did it affect your relationships? Was it a situation that it made relationships very difficult because you had problems with relationships, even with friends and further? Or how does it affect your relationships?
A lot.
Okay, cool. Come.
So
Pray tell.
My husband and I both have ADHD,
Mhm.
but as you may know, they present very differently in men and women.
Mhm.
So we are a full disaster together as a group. And there was, when we first moved in together, there was a big portion. This is the closest we ever came to breaking up. This was in 2013.
Mhm.
And it felt so much like being a kid again. It was that, how come you can't do it? It was, we had moved into a home and we were all excited to renovate and do home projects together and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I would paint one wall and then, my train of thought, I see a light switch. I go to the store, I buy the light switch cover, I come back, I get distracted. I see something in the bathroom that needs to get done. Then I'm downstairs, then I'm upstairs, and then I'm, oh God, and then I unpacked a box. And then in the box, there was something that needed to go in that other room. So then I was in the other room. And and it was like that for a month. And he got so frustrated at some point, like, I don't understand why you can't just get it done. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't even know what happened. I just was everywhere all at once. And it never really affected our relationship before, because in just being around each other and being together, my brain is lovely and hanging out is fun. But the second we tried to coexist and do projects together and build a life together, it was like, Anna, what the hell are you doing? And I said, I don't know, actually. This is just the way it's all going to get done. It was like, I knew it was all going to get done, but it was this huge, like, point of contention where for months we were just like at each other's throats.
Wow.
And the solution, I literally looked at him and I said, we're not working on the house anymore. That was it. Really? I said, we're not working on the house anymore because we're never going to survive this.
And that worked.
Yes. And then when we moved into a new house, same thing. I said, we're not working on this house.
Wow. I will take that.
Because it's not worth it to me. I mean, and that's kind of like my new life, but the way that I exist now, I'm not working against myself. I'm always going to choose the thing that's going to work with me, which is like, is this house livable? Yes. Does this house need anything done to it? No. Not worth the fight? Not worth, like, just stop. And there's still little things like when I go into, maybe this is relatable, when, you'll clean for like 18 straight hours out of nowhere for no particular reason. It just felt right. And then he will look at me like, why would you do that to yourself? You're going to be so tired and burnt out. You're not going to be able to do anything for days. And it's like, well, I have to use the energy while I have it. Like, I know that I have to use the energy while I have it because I don't know when it will be back. And because his ADHD is so much more, he doesn't stick with anything for longer than, he's a hobbies.
Oh, I see.
1,000 hobbies, in a week. And so it's just, they just look really different, the way that he operates and the way I operate, but combined, we're a mess.
Okay, so how do you manage that? How do you, because you've shown how, you manage it from the point of view when it came to the house, and the house was a situation, it was about to break you up. So that's fair enough, but that's not the only issues. If you are always clashing, where's the go-between? Where's the rules when certain things get to a certain way? And what do you do to alleviate the issues that you're having at any given point? Does that make sense?
Yeah. For me, like, I'm not as affected, right? When I watch him take on 9,000 hobbies, I'm just like, how cute, right? It's like, that's adorable. Like, good luck. I'll fund another project, whatever it is. But on my end, it's more than anything, it's just being conscious of not being a tornado sometimes. But it's good for me too to like know to slow down or try one thing. Like, and I don't know, it's just choosing the easier thing. It's just always making something a little easier on myself. Even if it's like, I didn't want to fight about messes anymore, right? And so I hired a housekeeper. Like, I don't know, it's having to work. Like, these are things that we can fix without me fixing, like without me taking care of it. And like knowing when to ask for help, knowing when to outsource. Like, I hired somebody to help me organize because my brain isn't really in the mood to organize. Like, it's giving like a lot of grace and a lot of patience, and especially we've been together almost 15 years now, so it's a lot of just knowing each other and knowing that we love each other more than we hate the things that we do.
So he had to give and take also. So it's a situation, you understand that, okay, I've got to get some help because of this. I may have to go to the next room, so I need some space. And so you must have had that serious chat, that conversation to resolve things, because obviously things got really difficult at certain points. So there must have been a coming together at its worst point, and you had that serious conversation just before you was getting to the stage of splitting. And how did that conversation look like?
It was literally, is this important to you? Like, do you think I'm somebody that you could spend the rest of your life with? And do you think our relationship is more important than this fight? Because if it is, then we're not having the fight. We're walking away from the thing causing the fight.
Well done. That's well said.
We do that a lot now too. Like, we'll get in these weird patterns where like both of us will stare at the sink for a week. Like, I'm not doing the dishes. And then he'll come home with paper plates. Like, hey, maybe we just need a week off of dishes. Like,
oh, that's great.
Yeah, like just making it a little easier for ourselves.
Yeah.
And things like that, you know, and asking for help when you need it. And, you know, when things get to a point, we rent like a big dumpster once a year, because we'll also have like when you have two chaotic brains living together, it's just a lot of stuff. Yeah. And it's like doing big purges when we're like ready for them. But it's just knowing that the relationship's always going to be more important. And then whatever the fight is, what's the easiest way we can solve that big problem?
That is so well put. You know how many people that's going to help, seeing it from, you've framed it from that point of view. You know, is the fight more important than the relationship? Because if you prefer the fight, then we're over. Right. And just being blatant from that point of view makes you go, whoa, exactly. Is this moment in time worth splitting that long-term relationship? And it puts it in perspective.
Yeah. And it's like, am I going to leave you over those dishes? Yeah. And it's like, do I want to right now? Yeah. But the grand scheme of things is that I'm not going to leave. Like, we're going to find a way to fix it.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. You work well together. I mean, you know, it can be chaotic, but the love is obviously there, and you found solutions to deal with it. And especially when you're the opposites and have an ADHD, the clash is potentially massive. Yet you still, I think what it is, more importantly, it's a situation that you both know yourselves. When I say not each other, yourself, you know what, you've come to the realization, and being honest with yourself, this is what I'm like, right? And because you both know yourselves, you can then put yourself in a position to work together to then find a solution. Does it feel like that?
Yeah, and the other thing that like has always been very important, probably since that first big fight, was like, you have to tell me before it's too far gone. You have to tell me like the second it happens, like the second you're frustrated with me or the second I'm frustrated with him. We can't wait because we're volatile and because we're a little bit chaotic. It is that like the second we are having an issue, we'll have to fix it because it will just get bigger and weirder and scarier. It's like so it has to be like little things first. So like, just an example, like I leave all the cabinets open.
Okay.
I don't know that I do it, right? I'm doing it right behind me. But instead of, like watching me do that for a week and then being like, why can't you figure out how to close the cabinets? It's every time I'm leaving a cabinet open, he's like, the cabinet's open. Like, yeah, it's getting into a habit of always saying like, hey, can you not do that? Hey, like, please don't set that there. Instead of waiting a month and then being like, I hate that you set the trash bag on the porch.
I hear that. Well done.
Because I'm like, but also it takes, for both of us, it might take 20 times. So it's like, keep reminding me that I do that because I don't realize I do it. And not getting mad about that. Like, I wish I didn't have to tell you 20 times, but we both have to tell each other 20 times. Yeah. Like, can you please set a sleep timer? Do you know? I probably say it every day. It's like, I beg of you to set a sleep timer on the TV.
What a wonderful relationship. Your relationship's quite colorful. So, it's never boring.
Yeah.
Never boring.
Never ever, sure. No. And it doesn't feel like it's been 15 years either, right? It feels like it's been 10 minutes and I have such a big crush on him and it's always going to be worth it to me.
That's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about now, you took a different direction in your life.
Yeah.
Now we can talk about that chaos when you left, when the shutdown came down and everything. The reason why I want to speak about it now, the listeners can put into point your ADHD, how it affects you in normal state of life. Then putting that all together with your relationship, how it can be volatile, but you have to compromise and etc. And then all of a sudden your life has changed. You lost your job, you lost the way your friendship. You had to share each other's space at the same time, because before it was a situation, okay, you're getting on my nerves now, and then you can go to work. But now you had to share the space while being under pressure, while having the issues you have as ADHD and ADHD, which are the opposites, and so on and so forth. So when it sounded bad before, it definitely sounds bad now. So I'm going to ask you, at that point in time when everything came to a V, everything came together, what held you both together, considering that you didn't kill each other because you were stuck with everything
for our relationship? That was the best time we've ever had.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Explain. Why was it the best time?
For me, it was the first time I'd ever even gotten to explore trying new things, right? Because my whole life had been work. So I'm home, I'm baking, I'm doing crafts, I'm playing with my dogs, I'm playing online, I'm making content, I'm playing video games. I get to sit outside and enjoy myself. And then that time, like, for him was his dream come true, because he's also a hobbies guy. So it was like he was playing games. He built a pizza oven that we never used. He organized our barn 10 different times and it's still not organized. but it was just for us. And it probably is a huge catalyst for why I eventually did go out on my own. Like, oh my God, I love getting to decide what I do next in the day. And I didn't know I loved that because it'd never been a choice. So being home that month was like, we got an air fryer. Like we did it all. Like we were just having fun and getting to be together. And this is true of our relationship always. We are at our best when we have no responsibilities. We get along when we have no responsibility. I always say it's that pesky survival and having to be an adult and have a job that gets in the way of who we are. Which, again, is why I made my job being who I am.
Exactly. And then you're now in a situation that you're independent. So your life is just a little bit easier, and you can structure your life pretty much how you want to structure it. You can structure your day. So you started everything around you. So the pandemic came, it started it. How long did it take before you were in a position to be independent? You was making enough money and you was happy-ish?
Probably 2 years ago, but I didn't fully leave until 2 months ago.
Okay.
So that didn't hurt either. I was having so much fun. And I had put a lot less stock in my job, right? I had kind of already let go. Like, this isn't my life anymore. This isn't my personality anymore. I'm here for the paycheck, and I changed my mindset, and I went from working 80 hours a week to working 30 hours a week. And I was happier and freer, so I was more efficient. I was focused on working in a way that worked for me instead of trying to fit in with the world like I always had before the pandemic. Now I was like, oh, I don't know what I want, but it's not this, and I'm not doing it that way, and I'm not staying after 5, and I'm not, because we went back to work and it was hard. But I had already sort of resolved to change my life. Like, why wouldn't I want to be happy? Why wouldn't I want to have a life that fits me? I spent so much of my life trying to fit into the world that didn't fit me.
Okay.
And so I kind of went on this path where I was like, no, I'm doing what I want to do.
Good for you. And I'm really glad, because now you're very successful. And in your success, what has happened? Have you do talks, don't you? So tell us about your success. What have you done in your success that you're proud of?
So, yeah, I mean, I lived so much of my life in fear of not, hitting those milestones and hitting those checkpoints and getting the traditional view of success, and, which was being the boss or whatever. And during the pandemic, I just sort of let go of expectations of myself and just started saying yes. And I kind of documented this whole journey, right? This was a mental health breakdown where I was terrified and working through it through the pandemic online in front of people. So that was the other thing. So I was sharing my whole life. I shared this entire journey. I shared every step of the way. And, I got really lucky that people could see something in me that I couldn't, which I'll be forever grateful for. I got asked, I think first somebody reached out to me and they said, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, what? No. And they're like, well, would you like to write a book? And I said, yeah, sure. And so they got me a publisher, and I sold 7,000 copies, and it's been crazy. And then just a little after that, so first came the book, then a little after that, I got reached out to. just by some guy online. He said, have you ever thought about doing a live show? And I said, no, I'm an event planner from a small town. Like, what are you talking about? And he goes, I'm going to get you a gig. And so he books me in like one of the most famous New York City theaters in the world. And you're just like, what? And I sold out 2 nights. And you're like,
wow.
Is this my life? And it's just been like, it's been saying yes and taking chances and, going on podcasts and telling my story and believing in myself. I mean, I just started a morning show in October, and it's every day, which was a weird choice for me, but I'm making it work. But I'm loving it. I'm loving talking every morning and getting to, wake my community up. And the other thing that's so amazing about this life that I'm building, especially as somebody, who struggles and is very neurodivergent, the community I'm creating is people who get me, right? I spent my whole life trying to squeeze into a life that didn't fit me. And instead, now I'm creating my own spaces, my own rooms, my own, communities that are built for me and surrounded by people who get me. And it's just so beautiful. And I know it's such a stretch, and it is such an alternative way of living. It reminds me of when they stuck me in alternative school. But this is my alternative life. It's the life that I make up every day that works for me.
Wow. That's wonderful to hear. And that's going to inspire so many other people that want to live their alternative life that should be for them. Because there's lots of people out there neurodivergent, and they think they just can't do it because bad memory, or they can't communicate properly, etc., etc. And you've shown, even with all the chaos that had just going on, even with the relationship you have, even, you're still able to do it. You're still in your testament to that. And so I'm really glad you came on this show to show people it is possible. And you've done so well, Anna. What you've gone through in your life has been quite arduous and difficult and the rest of it, but you've persevered and you've become a success, and you're still growing your life in the way you want to grow it. And that's such an inspiration to so many people. And I really thank you for coming on here. But before we go, may I ask you, give us one thing that you want to say to the listeners that will help them.
Your life doesn't have to look like anything you've seen before. That's it. It's you think you have to go down these paths, and you think your life's going to look like somebody else's. And I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that your life has to look like anything you've ever seen before. And same with relationships. It doesn't have to look like anything you've seen before.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for coming on there. I really appreciate it. How do they get in touch with you, contact you, etc.?
Yeah. So on socials, I'm at AKPRZY, and that's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, Facebook, all the same. And my website is akprzy.com, and that has links to my shows, my book, my morning show, and all the socials are on there. And I love what I do, and I get to talk to people all day, and it's really the best.
Wow, that's really good. Now you can see, listeners, you can see why she's so happy. She's had to go through the hardness in life that we all do. It takes time, but persevere. As you can see, she tried, she had a disaster in her life like we all did at a certain point, but it all came to a certain point, and she still strived, and she's successful. Follow her,
Yeah, Yeah, follow me. It's fun.
Follow her. Find out, how she's doing it. Have fun with her at the same time. And you never know. Maybe she can help you and inspire you so you can do what you need to do within your life. Anna, thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you. So, as always, listeners, unfortunately, it's time to go. We say goodbye to Anna and sayonara.